topic, which is the solar panels on the McAuliffe Library. So we did receive a memo a couple days ago from Mr. Keyser, co-signed by a bunch of folks. That's in the packet. And I'll open it up to councilor comments, questions, or motion. And just to remind folks, if you're not a member of the subcommittee, I'm going to turn off your video until you wish to speak, and then it's up to you if you want to turn on your video or not.
Question, this is AJ Mulvey, you broke up there. Is there public comment on any of the agenda items right now, or are you waiting until they come up?
We moved past that, so I'm going to go to councilors now, and then I'll come back to you if you'd like to comment. Right now, we're talking about the solar project. All right. Councilor Cannon.
Yes, thank you. This has been a really disappointing process because it's just, I think Sean has done an outstanding job and has been a fantastic hire and is a great asset to our community. But at the end of the day, it's not Sean's job to negotiate rates, to negotiate terms, to adjust the language in a contract, to vet a vendor. I had confidence really until this project began to unfold that we had a pretty solid procurement, purchasing, contract, that whole apparatus of negotiating a 20-year-long deal. I thought we were in good shape there. And throughout these meetings, it's become clear that we have a tremendous weakness there. The fact that we had $1 million plus of salaries and benefits on the line during at least one of our meetings, and it just seemed that everybody was relying and hoping that someone else had done the work to make sure that this 20-year deal, which we'll live with for 2 decades, is a sound one for the taxpayers of Framingham. To come to the Finance Subcommittee meeting without basic questions and to have been asked and have to ask again and we went shopping for a car, and we talked to one salesperson, and we trusted that one salesperson told us that we have the best deal going, and we believed that without vetting it for ourselves. So it's just disappointing. What I guess I want to hear, and I'll vote for the thing. I don't want this to become an issue where it's going to hold up our school projects, and that's ultimately my concern right now. So if there's a motion, I'll support it. But I do want to hear from the administration on what we've learned from this, and more importantly, what we're going to do different next time. This is a 20-year agreement with ultimately a company that is in the business of making money. And if we decide, if a future mayor decides a handful of years from now that we're going to do the comprehensive solar plan that we've been waiting for, and we want to go a different way with the McAuliffe building, well, we've got to write a check for more than $200,000. And I think it goes slightly lower than that in year 6. But the penalties are stiff, and no one could really provide any depth of insight there. So, I just was so crushed when the COO in the last meeting kind of said shopping around was a non-starter. Because, as has become evident, there are a lot of solar companies that are looking to do business with municipalities, and we're a pretty big municipality. And I just wish we could do a little bit better, because it shouldn't be the political win of, hey, we're going solar. And, ultimately, especially in the Finance Subcommittee, we're stewards of our financial legacy, and we need to vet these things carefully. And I just think it exposed some weakness in purchasing, procurement, and legal. And I have some grave concerns about that. And, the penalty if this goes awry is only a few $100,000, which is a ton of money. We do bigger projects, longer lasting projects that transcend generations. And I just hope we're looking at those more carefully than this one was looked at. So that's kind of where I am today. I don't want this to stand in the way of our school solar projects. And I know that they've had exhaustive meetings and sessions on that. but I hope we could learn from their hard work as well as we move forward.
Thank you. Councilor Leombruno.
So I agree with Mike. Just the whole way this thing has kind of been put forth before us, we kind of get it, and then we have to immediately act on it. Now, I think we had some good questions, and I'll be the first to admit that I don't really understand a lot of these solar. It's very confusing with the power options and just different way we buy and ways that we plan on for having future savings. So, I recall it always being that this was a 20-year buy-in with lots of numbers. And originally it was a $50,000 cost savings for over 20 years. So I just thought it seemed odd that we were not, benefiting more, and why we were choosing like one of our smallest buildings to, kind of start with. And we didn't seem to have any kind of, multi-project, any kind of way to incorporate other projects for, negotiating, leveraging even. And, so that was where I came from. And I think it's kind of too bad because it kind of got put on us that we were, dragging our feet. And, I see what is going on in Ashland, and, Mike Herbert, the town manager, I actually spoke with him yesterday, and he, they're doing amazing things there. And their 3-year project partnership was the savings of $800,000 plus for 3 years. And I look at the 20 years for $50,000, or even if we can stretch it out to 100, whether that includes the when we dismantle whatever the word is escaping me, but the I'm not really 100% sure. It just seems like we are well behind the kind of the climate game. I think that every community around us seems to be, an upwards of a decade ahead of us. We have a charging station at Farm Pond that we charge a fee for, and that's sort of like, that's our climate plan. Like, that's our, that's sort of our baby. And I would think that we would just be thinking bigger. I mean, we have a strong mayor. We have a city council that we've, been around the block a few times. We got Sean, who's this, young, energetic sustainability coordinator who's, we got a great team around us, but we have a charging station at Farm Pond. We have a small roof, one project, which is fine. I'm not against the one project, but I just had assumed at this point that we would have had a greater cost savings. And so that's been my, kind of reluctance to jump on this. And if we wanted more information, whether it be through just comparables, I just kind of didn't appreciate it that we were accused of dragging our feet or being anti-solar, because I think we ask really good questions when you compare what goes on with Ashland. And maybe in my lifetime, maybe we can catch up to Ashland. I'm really hoping. But I, too, will support this, because I'm not going to just kick it down again to the next meeting, because this is the best we're going to get. And, I still don't think it's good enough, but it's better than zero. But it's definitely not something I would like to see. And I would never want to strive for good enough. I would definitely like to see in the future, though, more of a collaboration, forward and progressive thinking here. We talk a real game about the good game about the solar, but we don't do anything. And that's the frustrating thing. So I'll leave my comments there, but I will definitely support this, but I do not want to see us, I want us to, get in the climate game if we want to really be serious and catch up to the communities around us. Thank you.
So thank you for those comments. I see Councilor King, and then I'll see if there's other councilor comments, and then Mr. Petrini's hand is up, the city solicitor. But before we get too much further into this, I don't want to go totally down a rabbit hole. I don't know what the city solicitor is going to say, but I think a lot of things that need to be said have been said. So let's aim for about 10 more minutes on this topic, and then hopefully we can come to a resolution because we do have other agenda items. But let's go to Councilor King, and then we will go to Mr. Petrini.
Thank you. I feel pretty similar to the way that Janet and Mike just spoke. You know, what bothers me, and we've seen it more often, more than once with this administration, we get items at the last minute and expect to act on them immediately after they've been sat on for months. I can name tons of things that we had to do. Some other people are keeping their videos on. I see Mr. Keys are popping right up behind me here. Can we have him put his video off?
Yeah, I'm just going to turn off video. And once you're recognized, and what you can definitely turn it on if you choose. Councilor King.
Thank you. So there's just been so many things that we have been in this situation that we're at the last minute contorting ourselves to pass it. And a few times that we don't, we get heavy criticism from generally a small group of interested people. And they may be different people depending on the issue. And I understand those people's frustration. I truly do. I mean, their frustration is not unwarranted. But it's just because we have the public aspect of it. We're the public-facing body. The mayor and her administration are not public-facing in that their work is not done in front of the public for the most part. Their work is done in offices and meetings that people don't have to be invited to. Ours is done mainly on Zoom now, but at meetings that people are always invited to. So maybe it looks a little bit messier here, but I hope it's just as messy behind the scenes that we don't see. But the time taken behind the scenes is almost always substantially longer than the time that we take. Even when we ask questions, they even ask for more information. So I think that is unfortunate, and I think in this particular situation, it's particularly highlighted because I think we all agree, we'd like to see solar, we'd like to see a much bigger investment in solar, but I think there's some very legitimate questions about this contract, and I do agree we kind of have to accept whatever we have, but I don't think it's a robust showing for the way we approach things from an administrative purchasing point of view. And the last thing I'll say is this: actually, as you all know, that this request to us is really just for easements, but we used it to discuss the contract in order to give the easements. I think legitimately so, for two reasons. One, because I think there are reasonable concerns about the contract, and two, rightfully, it's our contract. Any contract at this length, above 3 years, should be approved by the City Council. The administration, with some legal twisting, and you can twist the law, has read that the 2015 or 14 authorization of town meeting to the Board of Selectmen translates that authorization to the mayor. And I understand where it comes from. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand the idea behind it. But I don't think, even if it's legally correct, I don't think it's the spirit of the law. I don't think it's the spirit of the intent of what should be going on. This contract should have been brought to us. They ended up having to come here anyways because they needed the easement. If they didn't need the easement, they would have never come here whatsoever. So I don't necessarily have to make this motion tonight or right this second, but I do believe that at this point, the City Council should void, repeal, whatever you want to call it, all outstanding unused authorizations from town meeting to the executive. In other words, if they haven't been used in 3.5 years and they're the legislative authorizations to the executive, they should be repealed. And therefore, if the executive needs those authorizations, they should come the right way through this body. And I hope this committee would support that at this point, and we can put it on the agenda in the future. And maybe this place to start out would be to ask how many of those authorizations are out there and what they are. And whether they're intended to use them. But I just can't, I'm not even 100%, even though I would be kind of interested in that, I'm not 100% sure we need to know, because I think if they haven't been used in this period of time, they should be repealed. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a fair suggestion. Is there a motion before we go to Mr. Petrini to approve these, just so we can get that on the table?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Thank you. Motion by Councilor Leombruno, seconded by Councilor Cannon. Okay, Mr. Petrini, you have the floor. I would just say, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth, if you will. I think we're headed in the right direction. So if you could keep your comments relatively brief, I will ask you to unmute, and let me see, ask to start video. Should be able to pop up there now.
Thank you. I will be brief here, Mr. Chairman Steiner. But I did want to reference a couple of comments that have been made that the legal review did not occur here, and we've never actually been asked about that. I tried to speak about that at a meeting a couple of meetings ago, and I wasn't allowed to speak to the matter. But we did make a number of changes to both the PPA contract and the easement, including we added a decommissioning bond requirement in Section 9F from years effective for years 16 to 20. We added provision to Section 11C of the PPA, allowing pilot agreements. We changed the access rights into Section 3C. We put pro-city language on hazardous materials under Section 4H. We importantly amended the Section 15A and B provider and host indemnification language. In contracts, indemnification tends to be a very important issue that's negotiated, and we ensured that pro-city language was included or negotiated into that section. We changed the language of host default when we would be declared in host in default, requiring them to provide written notice. We changed language on query. We changed the definition of confidential information. On the easement, we changed language regarding the term, and we made it clear in the easement that the cost of repair and maintenance was on select. And also we added language to the decommissioning bond. So those are just several of the changes that we did negotiate when the agreement, the easement and the PPA were presented. We take our obligations very seriously and work in good faith at all times to protect the city, and that's what we do.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So again, I think let's try and avoid, getting down the rabbit hole, but certainly we'll take councilor comments.
If that's all right, since the city solicitor just spoke.
Sure. If you can keep it brief.
Yeah, just to clarify, no one said it didn't occur, but Mr. Petrini, could you clarify precisely how the early termination fees are calculated within years 1 through 5, please?
There is language in the early termination provisions which give the vendor the right to recover early termination fees. That is an economic term in the agreement. We did not negotiate that one term because it was core to the economic terms of the agreement. There were several other provisions that were changed, and there were certain off-ramps allowed in the contract for the city to buy its way out of the contract later in the term as well. But I agree with you. The early termination provision is an important element of the financial protection to the vendor, because keep in mind, they're paying for the solar, they're designing the solar, they're installing the solar at no cost, immediate cost to the taxpayer. And they make the money back by selling us back the power. So I'm aware of the early termination provision. We did consider that. It was not negotiated because it was presented as an economic term, essential to the agreement, but we did negotiate other terms.
Thank you, Mr. Petrini. When I say that how this unfolded gives me cause, worry, doubt, concern, however I put it before, it's the fact that, as you just said, we didn't try to negotiate it. It's not that we tried and failed. It's not that we tried and they said no. It's that we didn't try. So yeah, we have to write a check for $200,000 plus, and the city solicitor can't tell us how that number is calculated. I have no additional questions, but I think that sums up a great deal of the concern that I had about this 20-year agreement and the basic fundamental vetting that has not happened. I will vote for it. Mr. Petrini, I urge you to take Chairman Steiner's words seriously, not to look a gift horse in the mouth, because I will go another 9 rounds. But I will vote to approve this, but we have to do better.
Okay, and I work in good faith at all occasions, Mr. Cannon, and we negotiated several provisions here. Again, it was an economic term, and your point is taken.
You didn't even try.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I think you've both done a good job making your point. All right. If any other councilor comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll vote on the motion by Councilor Leombruno, seconded by Councilor Cannon. Councilor King.
Yes.
I'm sorry. If you don't mind, I'm going to go to public comment because I meant to do that.
We are looking at gift horse in the mouth.
We are. And I already started voting, so I think we're going to go with the vote at this point. And, public are welcome to make comments separately. Councilor